I'm going to say something controversial.
Saying Jasmine's going to say something controversial is about as surprising as Jada throwing Will under the bus, Nick Cannon having another baby, Donald Trump violating a gag order. At this point, it's just something we would expect. Now, what would surprise me is if today is the first time you actually back up what you're saying with some type of evidence. Now, that would be a surprise.
Your cognitive dissonance will attempt to deactivate your critical thinking the moment that you're triggered. I'm not trying to offend you, but I don't give a fuck if you're upset.
Oh, we know you don't care. People who do care take the time to research what they're speaking about and make informed commentary. But we know that's not what you do on your platform. But I get it. See, critical thinking is the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. Now, you might talk fast, but I listen slow. And your opinions are never objective, and they lack evidence that you've done any analysis or evaluation of the issues that you choose to speak on. Particularly when you choose to speak on biblical matters. You tend to form an opinion first and then proceed to construct erroneous arguments to support your presuppositions. It's tantalizing to the ears and sounds very convincing when you talk fast, but when we listen slow and actually examine what you're saying, it's nothing more than conjecture, which is an opinion or conclusion formed on the basis of incomplete information.
Seeing all the Christians posting how they can't condemn Israel because it's the promised land and this is the will of God made me think about the indoctrinating scripture of raise a child up in the way that they shall go and they will not depart from it.
This is another thing you do often. Quote a scripture out of context that you do not understand and justify it by telling people that you grew up in church and that your father is or was a preacher, as if that makes your exegesis of the scriptures infallible. Solomon is not teaching that every parent who raises their children in the church is going to guarantee that they will never go astray. The verse has nothing to do with salvation. Solomon is instructing parents to dedicate or to consecrate their kids to a life of godly wisdom and instruction, and that the values that they give them will stick with them for life.
90% of the people sitting in the pews of a church are not Christians, they're atheists.
Based on what research? Absolutely none. As I said, you have done no analysis or evaluation to make this ridiculous claim.
They're not followers of Christ or followers of the Christian God, they're followers of man.
Again, more conjecture and more projecting your subjective beliefs and presenting your unqualified opinion as if it is fact.
The only thing they believe in with all their heart, mind, and soul is the fear and consequence of going against said man. As a former Christian, I was told all the time that when you're outside of the will of God, you don't feel close to him. But I didn't feel close to him when I was living within what I was told was the will of God.
Unfortunately, Jasmine, someone taught you wrong. Our relationship with God isn't about whether we feel close to him or not. Being a Christian means understanding that we are a part of God's family. God is our Father and we are his children. And that relationship is eternally secure the moment we enter into it. I have 3 beautiful children and they are forever my children, no matter whether they feel close to me or not, whether they obey my rules or not. I establish rules for my children to follow, not because I'm a tyrant and I'm concerned with punishing them for breaking the rules. I establish rules not for their destruction, but for their development. As their parent, I know what's best for them, even if they don't understand it. Breaking my rules will bring swift consequences, but it will never sever our relationship.
And my greatest fear in going against God was the way that I would be treated after doing so, because I saw how Christians treated people and thought about people that didn't think like them.
If you go to the hospital and the staff or the patients treat you unfairly, do you just not seek medical treatment from the doctor? No. Does it mean that the HIPAA laws, the Patient Bill of Rights, and the Code of Ethics is flawed because the staff failed to adhere to it? Absolutely not. Because we understand that every bad employee working in the doctor's office doesn't necessarily indicate that the institution itself is corrupt. And although it may mean seeking treatment at a different facility, none of us are ever going to refuse to accept medical care again in life because we were mishandled by the people at a particular facility.
That's all you've ever known, then you don't challenge things, which helped me understand why the church has always been so dismissive of mental health and therapy.
But with many counselors, there is deliverance. Proverbs 11:14. A fool's way is right in his own eyes, but whoever listens to counsel is wise. Proverbs 12:15. For unto us a child is born, a son will be given to us. He will be named Wonderful Counselor. Isaiah 9:6. Plans fail when there is no counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. Proverbs 15:22. The scriptures are filled with verses that focus on improving the spiritual and mental health of God's people.
If that same child finds out they were raised up using abuse and fear-based tactics and not the will of God, they may then begin to question the other wills of God and find nothing but the flaws of man.
Or they might actually pick up the Bible themselves, study it, and be transformed by the renewing of their mind so that they may discern what is the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God.
If they find out that one of the flaws of man is using the will of God as a concept to keep Christians in a dissociative state of complacency, so they just turn a blind eye during crimes against humanity instead of feeling the weight and burden of morality such as guilt, shame, and accountability, 3 vital things to make sure you don't participate in shit like a genocide, all that thinking may make them realize that they don't want to fight in the army of the Lord.
Or, like me, it may make them want to grow up and be a Christian apologist and learn how to contend for the faith, to demolish the flawed arguments of popular TikTokers who teach heresy and everything that is raised up against the knowledge of God. Wouldn't that be nice?
Wait a minute, did y'all just catch what she just said? Crimes against humanity, morality, guilt, shame, accountability, genocide, and the Holocaust being wrong? If you listen slow, Jasmine just stole from God. How? I'm glad you asked. If God does not exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. If there is no God, then what basis remains for objective good or bad, right or wrong? Without the objective moral standard that comes from God, we're left with subjective moral values. Where do concepts like guilt and shame come from without God's objective moral law that's written on all of our hearts? She mentioned accountability. Accountability to what or to who? Each other? When one person sees what one person sees as crimes against humanity, another may see as a holy war. Who are we to tell them they are wrong if there is no objective moral standard? In a world of subjective morality, which is what we have without God, who are you and I to say that genocide or even the Holocaust is wrong? We only know these things are wrong because we have an idea of objective morality, which comes from God. So let me put it like this. If we don't have an objective idea of what a straight line looks like, then we cannot say that another line is crooked. We must have an indisputable, objective concept of what straight is to call anything else crooked. And without some objective reference point, we have no way of saying that something is up or down. God's nature provides an objective reference point for moral values. It is the standard by which all actions and decisions are measured. And with no God, there is no objective reference point. And all we're left with is one person's viewpoint, which is no better than anybody else's viewpoint. This is subjective morality, which means that how you feel is not valid or binding for anyone else because it's just based upon your feelings. Now, we know that objective moral values and duties do exist. Every time you say that's not fair, that's wrong, or that's unjust, you're affirming your belief in the existence of objective morals, a straight line. Atheism fails to provide a foundation for the moral reality that every one of us experiences every day. In fact, the existence of objective morality points us directly to the existence of God. So in a weak attempt to discredit God and Christianity, Jasmine actually proves the existence of God by affirming her belief in objective morality. Once again, you talk fast, but I listen slow.
See the comments now. She's just a devil worshiper that doesn't believe in the teachings of Christ. Christ would never approve of an ethnic cleansing in a promised land handpicked by the same men that keep cosplaying his daddy for the sake of capitalism in a country that keeps you too poor to ever visit said land. But go off.
Christ would also never approve of people misrepresenting his teachings for their own personal gain and benefit, and doing so under the guise of education. But go off.